Welcome, Jeffrey Cohen and the FullBloom leadership team to just come together for this really important conversation that actually speaks to this really important moment where we are, we're thinking about that our future of this education depends on how willing we are in terms of thinking differently, working differently, and partnering really, really deeply with our partners. So I really appreciate this conversation today. And we know that we have systems that have been designed decades ago, and they are all struggling to meet the realities of today. So we're just sort of bringing this conversation together, with this partnership, just to have the same expectation that we all do, that every student deserves the opportunity to thrive. And I know that FullBloom does that really well. So without much delay, I would just like our Dean Basile to kick us off, and then we'll pass the baton to Erin to go ahead with through the sessions and introductions, etc. With that, Carol, would you like to kick us off on this one? Thank you.
So last week, we had a full day meeting with a group called CK12. CK12 has been around for about 20 years. They're all over the world, and they have been creating a learning, I would say, learning system, learning platform around STEM. It's amazing what they have done. And we were looking at all the features, right, of these new sort of AI enhanced systems and thinking about what's the role of an educator, because they want us to create a certificate around like what is, what's going to change? How do these kind of features in this AI space and AI tutors and all these things, how does it change, right? The practice of teachers. One of the things that they had as part of this was their data system. They know how kids are engaged, when they're engaged, when they have misconceptions, when they're, everything about what's going on with kids. And that feature alone, once you have seen it, and once you have seen all that data, and once you've seen the diversity of data, and once you understand that we are living in the real world of variance, you cannot unsee it. So as we think about how do we build systems for the variability, for the variance, the way kids think, the way kids engage, the way kids are learning, the way they're thinking, their logic, their, all the things they bump into, it's really, really important that special education, right, then sits at the center of that as we start to think about what are these systems. Well, FullBloom, you're wondering if I forgot that or something, but FullBloom, Jeffrey and I have been talking now for quite a while, and our teams have been talking about what does this mean, right? So here's a company who has really developed an incredible way of thinking about what I talk about as private-public partnerships around special education. And we then are coming in talking to them about things like next education workforce and teams and, what could this look like? And how do we start to think about how we prepare, special education teachers? And is there something called special ed if we actually think that variance is the norm and not average? And so most of you have heard me talk about that. And I think this is then an opportunity to hear what they are doing, how they're thinking now, where they're going. This is a company who has been doing this work for a very long time, now working with us. So I think this is a huge opportunity for us to continue that conversation. And I'll turn it over to Erin, but thank you, Jeffrey, and the rest of your team for being here and sharing with us.
Yeah, thank you.
Yes, I can reiterate that. We really appreciate you being here, and also that the whole team is here, because I know that there are many facets of your work that, that and each one of you kind of has different expertise and oversees different programs. So I'm going to turn it over to you if you would first like to introduce your team, and then I know you have a slide deck to share as well.
Yeah, Erin, thank you, and Carol, thank you so much. And just in general, the team here at ASU, thanks for this invite. It's unique for us, and it's a privilege. And we're looking forward to the conversation. Introduction: my name is Jeff Cohen. I'm the CEO of FullBloom, And I have a few colleagues here today who I'll let real quick introduce here. Dawn, I'll pass it to you.
Yeah, thanks, Jeff. So, good afternoon, everybody. My name is Dawn Thomas, and I'm the president of Specialized Schools, also known as SESI. So, I oversee our special ed and alternative education schools across the country. And now I'll turn it over to Diane for a quick intro.
Hi, everybody. I'm Diane Myers. Thanks for being here this afternoon. I'm excited to chat with everyone. My role at SESI is Senior Vice President of Integrated Support, and I oversee all of our academic, behavioral, and mental health programming for all of our schools. And I will kick it to Emily.
Hey y'all, good morning. I'm Emily Gaines, and I'm the Vice President of People and Culture for SESI. So my team supports all things recruitment, talent development, HR, and overall making SESI the best place to work, second to ASU.
Mhm. And Preeta.
Hi everyone, my name is Preeta Sinha. I'm the Senior Manager of Internal Communications at FullBloom, and I am here today to support the SETSI team and drive the presentation forward. Thank you.
So what we thank you guys. What we thought we'd do is run through the proverbial slide deck that gives you an overview quickly of FullBloom, a little more precise information around our special ed business, SESI, which several of my colleagues are here from that company today. And then we really want to reserve time to have a conversation. That's the kind of real value in this for us, is to hear what's on your mind and create a dialogue that hopefully might go beyond just this one instance. So I'll do a few slides just on FullBloom, and then I'm going to hand it to Dawn if you want to go. So we start with mission values. I'm not going to read them to you. I will tell you that in addition to our mission of creating brighter futures for kids and the values that we try to instill across all the work and all the decisions we make, there's a purpose in this as well. And the purpose really is to drive social impact at scale. And when we think about FullBloom as a public-private partnership, in those partnerships, the question we're constantly asking is, can we measure the impact, the social impact, and can we deliver it at scale? Because the need is so great. The scale part is important just because of the demand and the urgency. So we can go to the next slide on here's the brief overview on this slide, because this can be a whole conversation with all of you as well. This is what I call our big idea slide. So I'm going to introduce the various parts and pieces of FullBloom, but based on our experience, we think about the development of children along these three domains: the behavioral domain, the academic domain, and the emotional. And what we see in decades of work with school districts is there's a lot of work going on along each of these domains, but there's very little integration, right? And the opportunity to build a cohesive, integrated, full MTSS platform that allows schools, administrators, teachers to look at data along each of these domains simultaneously and make better decisions around what to do with children next. We think that's a little bit of a kind of a holy grail big idea that we are aspiring to build. And hopefully we can talk about more in the discussion. But that's kind of the big idea we're chasing. More tactically, if you go to the next slide. So the company is formed around three business units or divisions, we call them. Specialized education, which is the special ed group you're going to hear from today, and really the group that is partnering with ASU that Carol articulated earlier. We also have a company called Catapult Learning. Catapult predominantly focuses on academic interventions for Title I children. Catapult's been around for 50 years, working in 40 some states. We've worked with millions of children, providing math, reading, and counseling supplemental programming in partnership. Again, all of this is in partnership with schools. Catapult also is one of the largest providers of teacher training and job embedded coaching in the country. And then Character Strong on the right is a company it's new to us. We bought this company about a year ago because of their strength around the emotional domain, and Character Strong focuses on predominantly tier one and tier two SEL programming. They're in many thousands of schools today, and we believe Character Strong plus a couple of other elements that we're putting together start to form the foundation of that broader MTSS platform that I mentioned a minute ago. So we're really excited to have them as part of the FullBloom family. If you go to the next slide, this is sort of, if you think about, I mentioned social impact at scale at the outset. This is just to give you a sense of who we are and where we are. You can see we have 10,000 plus educators on staff. We are a service organization at heart. So when you think about kind of the K-12 private sector ecosystem, a lot of those companies are product companies selling books, selling software, and the like. And we do some of that. But for the most part, Catapult Learning and SESI, who you'll hear from in a minute, is service-based, which means we're sending those thousands of people that work for us into schools every day and are interacting with teachers and children. You can see we're in over 12,000 schools, and we're working with all the largest school districts and many thousands of school districts across the country. What we do, we'll get into more with SESI in a minute, but you can see we kind of cover the landscape there in what we do. I think of our kind of reason for existing sometimes as trying to identify the most intractable problems that school districts are facing and come up with solutions for those problems. That's the essence of a public-private partnership. We're not trying to replicate things that schools do or suggest that we can do them better. What we recognize is the complexity of running a school in today's world, and the idea that there are naturally areas of expertise that if we can provide that expertise to the school system, that can allow the school system to be more effective across kind of the spectrum of all the kids that they're serving. Preeta, if you want to go to the next. So that's a quick kind of what I'd say very high level overview. Happy to answer questions, but I wanted to quickly get to SESI. We'll take you kind of a click down into our special ed business, and then hopefully open up for a conversation here. But let me hand it off to Dawn.
All right, thanks, Jeff. So for specialized schools, you'll hear us refer to us as SESI throughout the presentation. So at our core, we partner with school districts and families to support students in special education and alternative education settings whose needs go beyond what traditional classrooms can provide. So, this connects to the complexity of running a school that Jeff just alluded to. And generally, districts choose us because we're delivering specialized services, like I said, that they may not have the capacity or the infrastructure to offer on their own. And families generally choose to work with us because we provide a nurturing environment where their kiddos are supported academically and behaviorally and emotionally. And our team, we take so much pride in watching our kiddos grow, not just in their academic skills, but also in their confidence and their independence. And our mission is we want to make sure that every student receives the support that they need to reach their full potential. And we do this because we're able to provide specialized educational settings, so smaller class sizes with higher staff to student ratios and individualized academic and behavioral interventions. So if you advance to the next slide, Prita, so I'll talk a little bit about our scale. So the students that we serve often have a combination of academic and behavioral and emotional needs. So it includes learners with autism, communication delays, multiple disabilities, minimally verbal students who would thrive in a structured, supportive environment, and then also students that have become disengaged from school due to either behavioral escalation or some credit gaps. So that's a little bit about the population of kids. Diane's going to double click on that a little bit more. But in terms of our scale, we serve over 12,000 K through 12 students a year, and that number continues to grow. We partner with over 800 school districts, and we operate about 100 private day schools and support over 145 in-district classrooms. And I'm going to spend time talking about or giving context on the difference between our private day schools and our in-district classrooms as we move through the slides. But when you see the scale, right, like with the scale comes immense responsibility. And our goal is we want to make sure that we're delivering a consistent and high quality experience for all of our students and all of our partners, whether they're on the West Coast or on the East Coast. And to do that, we've been investing heavily in making sure that we have strong systems and clear data visibility and standardized processes so we can operate cohesively as a system of schools and not simply a collection of individual programs. But at the same time, I mean, even with our scale, we're really intentional about maintaining a regional and community-based feel so that families feel like, I guess that families value, so they don't feel like our schools are part of a national chain. So if you advance to slide 8, so we operate in 17 states. Given the growing need for our services, we expect our footprint to continue to expand. Our branding is intentionally tailored based on student population and regional context, which is why if you look at our list of programs across the country, you might see our special ed programs under names such as Sierra School and High Road School, and our alt ed programs under names such as Excel and Achieve Academies. But I want to talk a little bit about the way that we deliver our services. So if you advance to the next slide. So I referenced our private day schools and our in-district classrooms. So I'll talk a little bit about each. So think of an in-district classroom or an IDC. These are specialized classrooms located within district facilities, but fully staffed and operated by SESI. So students receive the intensive supports that they need while remaining connected to their home district, which is a benefit for districts. And SESI, so we hire and we train the instructional team, including the teachers, program leaders, and additional academic and behavioral support staff. But again, the district provides the building. Now, private day schools, on the other hand, these serve students in highly structured, specialized settings, but outside of district facilities. So in these cases, we're providing the school site. Districts refer students to us directly. And in these programs, students often come from multiple districts, and we work closely with district partners and families just to ensure continuity of services and smooth transitions. But across both models, our goal is to remain the same. We want to support students in progressing towards the least restrictive environment so that when appropriate, they are prepared to learn alongside their gen ed peers as much as possible. So that's a little bit about who we are, how we serve our kiddos, and our scale. Diane's going to double click on the students we serve and the programming that we offer.
I am. So thanks, Dawn. Like Dawn said, at SESI, we're supporting students who really need more support than their own districts are able to provide. So the students we serve range from kindergarten, sometimes even a little bit younger, all the way up through high school. And then we even have some adult service programs. like Dawn said, we have in-district classrooms, we have standalone therapeutic day programs that serve all of our students. And in our special education programs, we serve students primarily whose disabilities impact access and success in the general education or even a less restrictive special education environment. I'll talk a little bit more about that in a moment. These students may have significant behavioral or mental health challenges that impede their learning. They might have learning challenges that result in significant behavioral challenges. They might have needs across all domains. And we serve students in special education from multiple disability categories, including students with emotional behavioral disorders, students with autism, students with specific learning disabilities, students with OHI. And in addition to our special education students, we serve alternative education students where students are placed with us primarily due to code of conduct violations. These might be short-term placements for 45 days, maybe as a result of a suspension, or they might be with us for years, depending on the type of program, depending on the type of need. And I'll talk more about our specific learning pathways on the next slide. So really, we serve all kinds of different students who have needs that can't be met by their own districts. And that's where that partnership is really, really critical. So Preeta, if you can go to the next slide. This visual up in the top right corner shows a little bit more of how we think about partnering with our district stakeholders. So we're in special ed particularly, we're towards the more restrictive end of the special ed placement continuum. And then, like Dawn said, we have our in-district classrooms, which are exactly what they sound like. We work with our district partners to find space in their buildings and service students in there with our staff and our programming. And this is a great way for our students to still have time with peers who aren't in our program, to be able to gradually scaffold the return to a less restrictive environment, often in that same building. And then we have our standalone schools, which have sometimes that regional model where they're serving multiple districts. And this is a real alternative to some residential placements and really can provide places for these students to have opportunities to learn with other peers, have opportunities to learn from peers, and really have a more typical school experience than they would be able to have in a highly restrictive placement. Both our in-district and standalone schools might host a single learning pathway or several learning pathways. I won't read you the details on all 6 of our learning pathways here, but just to give you a broad overview, we have 3 different learning pathways for our students in special education: Spark, Spring, and Bloom. And those range in the intensity of services provided. Our Spark classrooms tend more towards students with emotional and behavioral challenges and disabilities. Our Bloom classrooms tend more towards students on the autism spectrum or who may have more functional communication deficits. And then in our alternative education learning pathways, we have 3 different models. One for younger students, pre-K, K, early elementary grades who might be part of a district response to intervention program to see if they need more instruction, more specific instruction, to sort of be a determiner for if we want to go forward with special education diagnostic testing. We also have a transitional model for students who have been struggling and need additional academic and behavioral support to get back to their public schools. And we have an accelerated model where these are students who might be overaged, undercredited, and really need help getting back on track and getting the credits they need to be able to graduate. So Preeta, if you can go to the next slide, I'm going to talk broadly about our programming. And happy to talk through any more specifics after we have our presentation. So across all of our programs, special education, alternative education, we implement what we call our support, prevent, connect approach to make sure that we're meeting all students' academic, behavioral, and emotional needs. So rather than placing students in a specific static tier, we have a dynamic, established continuum of supports so students can receive the intensity of support that they need in any particular domain or skill. So I'm sure as all of you have experienced, some students might need intensive and individualized mental health supports, but are able to make academic growth with universal high quality programming. Or a student might have intensive academic and behavioral needs that require specific supports, but they get the mental health and wellness support they need from high quality universal programming. So we really make sure that students' specific learning needs and the interventions we provide are a match and that we are thinking about student strengths in addition to areas where they need extra supports. And to just look a little bit more closely at, I know Jeff referenced, so you can go to the next slide, Brita, I'm sorry. Jeff referenced the intersection of academic, mental health, and behavioral support at a large scale at the FullBloom level, and we are doing that in our company level at SESI. So we have an integrated support model, and we really work at this whole child approach to the intersection of these three domains. So we integrate our academic, behavioral, and mental health supports rather than have them in silos to make sure that A, we're being most efficient with the time that we have with our students, and B, to make sure that we're promoting generalization. So if students are working on specific social skills, we want to make sure that those social skills are reinforced during academic programming. We want to make sure that preventative mental health supports are embedded throughout all aspects of the day, including learning time in the classrooms. Our academic supports are grounded in high leverage practices. We know that the most effective way to promote pro-social behavior is by having engaging instruction, no matter what level the students are at. So we're really We're really intentional about providing high quality instruction and engaging instruction. And like I said, we make sure that behavioral supports and mental health supports are embedded in that programming so that we can be sure we're programming for generalization. Our goal is not just that students do well when they're with us. Of course, we want that, but we really want them to be successful when they go back to a less restrictive environment and in years beyond SESI in their communities and in their homes. And we have been lucky, as everyone has mentioned, to partner a little bit with ASU. And I'm going to kick it over to Emily to talk about some of the exciting work that we've been doing over the last several months.
Thanks, Anne. Yeah, so in order to run effective quality programs for kids, we obviously need really high quality staff members to do that, teachers and support staff and leaders. And as I'm sure you all are aware, the teacher shortage continues to be a challenge that faces most major school systems, including us. And in order to tackle that challenge, we've been working really strategically, actually over the last 3 to 4 years at SESI, to build partnerships that create pathways for teachers, for paraprofessionals, for our one-to-one aides to grow their skill set and in many cases earn new certifications. This has not only allowed us to meet the needs and to expand and to run high quality programs, it also means that we have increased our retention over the last 4+ years by almost 20 percentage points by ensuring that we're giving our valued team members pathways toward their future career trajectory. And one of those partnerships we're so excited to share has been with ASU Mary Lou Fulton College for Teaching and Learning Innovation. I'm learning to say that very quickly altogether. And we have been able to work hand in hand with so many wonderful folks who are on this call today. Carlin, I think I see you. We deeply appreciate your partnership. And so for our ASU partnership, we're working on kind of two domains. We are excited to launch, we've just launched this year, a bachelor's degree in credentialing program that will allow our, mostly our paraprofessionals and our one-to-one aides to earn their degree and earn their teaching credential and start to envision their future as a teacher with SESI. And so we're excited to see, build out iterations of this partnership to meet more and more of our employees where they're at. We are also excited to be working with and have worked with Next Education Workforce to be a part of their dreaming and innovating of what team-based models could do for kids. And so we are excited to work together with them to think about enhanced in-service teacher training and be part of their work in piloting new staffing models, specifically with embedded special educators and bringing our expertise around special ed programming. I think this is where we're going to end it and make sure that we leave some room for questions and dialogue. And we're excited to chat with you all.
Yes. Thanks, Emily. So let me, before we jump into dialogue here, maybe I can wrap up because, and I think we purposely wrapped with Emily's slide to talk about the partnership with ASU. More broadly, obviously we went through that quickly, but as you think about our business and why partnership is so important, we see ourselves as partners that are bringing unique skills and experience and expertise to our customers, clients who are our school district partners. But we can't do what we do by ourselves. We need partners too. And what we have found over the years is some of the best partners really are universities and colleges because you all fill in many of the gaps that we have, right? And bring to us, as Emily just went through, right, the opportunity to offer bachelor's degrees, and we'll go on from there into master's degrees and so forth to our employees. But also, when we think about who we want to partner with on the college front, I mean, ASU, yes, because we could build the degree partnership, but I would say more broadly, among the thousands of 2 and 4 year institutions out there, I know you all know this, but I mean, ASU is regarded as the most innovative university in the country, right? The most forward thinking. And I think that is clearly, at least from our experience, embodied in the School of Education through Carol's leadership. And when we started to learn about the work around next education workforce, clearly we understand based on our own experience that the special ed model just doesn't work, right? If you think about how many kids are in special ed and that population's growing, and the fact that the population of special ed teachers is declining, that's a forever problem. And right, we can't ignore it. And we're not going to solve it by doing more of the same thing that we've done for the past 50, 100 years. It requires innovation. That innovation is, we have thoughts about that, but the university setting is really where you get the grounding for that innovation. So we're excited just to be part of the dialogue and a small part of that conversation and the whole initiative around next education workforce. So we'd love to open it up. I just wanted to kind of end by explaining what brings us to this conversation. And we can't do what we want to do or achieve what we aspire to achieve without partners like ASU. So we're, again, really appreciate the time today. With that, I'll see if there are questions or comments about what we're up to.
Thank you so much. Especially ending with partnership is, I think, a great launching point to talk about as well. And Carlin, I know you already mentioned. Do you want to speak to a little bit about what we've been doing?
Sure, I'm happy to. Uh, it took us about 2 years to actually get this partnership to fruition, and we enrolled our first group of students in this semester. The partnership is meant to be able to provide, as Emily said, a pathway for all of their instructional assistants and paras to be able to earn their bachelor's degree in mild, moderate special education while also getting their teaching certificate, their Arizona credential, and through reciprocity, be able to transfer that to their state. Part of the beauty of this is we were able to, with a lot of advocacy from our college to the provost, get fairly significant tuition reduction for this population. And SESI has committed to doing tuition reimbursement for all of their employees annually during this time as well. And so they're really putting in a lot of financial and human capital to try to get these individuals to certification, including reimbursing them for their application fees during this application process in the fall. We had 26 students apply to and were accepted into the mild moderate special education bachelor's degree program. We are hoping that that number grows over the coming semesters. We did, actually, with the help of Katie Halltorp, who's here, and Erica Flores, I don't think Erica's here, did a series of, I think, 4 or 5 information sessions, which were well attended by paras from throughout the country. And ultimately, we had 26 who were ready to start. And, this is just the beginning of what could be a great opportunity for us to get more special educators.
Thank you. And, I welcome others to ask questions. You can unmute and ask questions or put them in the chat. The first one we had during the presentation was about the MTSS certificate. If you guys could talk a little bit more about what you do for your MTSS certificate.
Sorry, I had to come off mute. Is this, I don't know if I understand. Diane, actually, I think this might be for you.
Oh, maybe.
Yeah, I guess I don't understand. I'm looking for Laura on my screen. Maybe Laura can give us a little more context here.
It was listed on one of your slides, I believe, early on that you offer an MTSS certificate, and so that's, I think, where the question came from.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. This is Laura.
Hi, Laura.
Yeah.
Hi. Yeah. So I saw that, and of course, that's where my attention went.
Yeah.
And
Yes.
so I wanted just to know a little bit more about that. If it's on the website, I can definitely check that out. But I just wanted to.
Yeah. Yes. Sorry. Right, that's and I apologize, Emily and Diane. I didn't even put the spot there. I think that's referring to our MTSS certificate program in Character Strong.
Yes.
So if you go on I think if you go on the website, so Character Strong, it does a series of programming around the country, led by Dr. Clay Cook, who's an expert in MTSS, and they have a full-on certificate program that typically is engaging administrators or building leaders. So, assistant soups and principals and assistant principals that come together and go through the program. So, and that, interestingly, I'll tell you just an aside because you asked about that, because I've attended a number of those sessions. We talk about MTSS, and it's very important to the work that we're doing. But I sat in a session about a year ago in Austin where there were 50 or 60, as I said, building leaders and some district administrators. And the first question they asked is, what is MTSS? And the room, maybe 10 or so people raised their hands, and we went through, the different folks. And after listening to 5 of them, it was very clear that there was no consistent understanding as to what MTSS is. And which was really interesting if you think about it, because here you've got this term that is being used daily across every school district in America. And I'm sitting in a room with people who are describing and defining MTSS in wildly, wildly different ways, to the point where the last person said they use MTSS as a verb, as if meaning they MTSS kids. And it was almost disciplinary. And so it's so then you think about, like, why is there a need and a demand for a certificate program? Well, you could start at the beginning with a complete lack of consistent understanding as to what an MTSS, system really is. But happy to go offline if you want to learn more about the certificate program. I would guide you to take a look at the Character Strong website, which has all the elements of it.
Well, thank you.
I will say, we got to go and tour the Sierra School of Gilbert locally here near our Tempe campus. And so I think there are several people on the call now that got to be at those tours. And I would love to hear their impressions or their thoughts or questions that they might have had since that visit as well. So if any of you can join in, would anybody be willing to share what they saw? Thank you, Juliet.
Yes, I got to actually also meet with Jeff in another context and get a lot of background on FullBloom and SESI and all of the different branches of work that you're doing. And I certainly applaud the ambition. And I really appreciated being able to visit Sierra Academy of Gilbert. I really enjoyed seeing sort of in action what the school is providing. But to kind of turn attention to, I'm interested for a second here in the services you deliver in the public school, because that's sort of interesting. It presents some interesting questions as I think about it. One of the things I'm wondering about is when districts contract with FullBloom to deliver services for students. These are students with IEPs, legally binding document, right? I'm wondering about how parents are informed about who's going to provide the specially designed instruction, and then how is that reflected on their IEP in terms of the staff roles, the supervision, their consent? Because like I say, with the public school setting, we've got these legally binding documents and we've got to really adhere to IDEA. So I'm just real curious about sort of how that all works, if you can speak to that.
Yeah, so let me start and then I'll invite Diane, I think, to maybe add. So couple just clarifying points. The SESI schools you should think of as extensions of the public schools, right? They're private, depending on the state. They have different labels. So they're private. In some states, they're considered non-public. But ultimately, they're an extension. That's the point of this public-private partnership. We simply exist to take care of certain kids that the districts are saying, we need somebody else to help. So the reason I say that is you should think of SESI as an extension of the public schools. So then we would answer your question by saying, well, we're partners in the IEP committee, right? We go to all of the meetings. Our staff is in the meetings, interacting with the school district folks, the school psychologists, the parents, right? And often, and it's interesting. The lunch I came from was with a gentleman named Chris Cerf, who's on our board, and we were talking. He was the commissioner of education in New Jersey, and he was also the superintendent in Newark, New Jersey. And we were talking exactly about this because he was asking me, when kids are referred to us, does the IEP get modified? And I said, absolutely. Once we're involved in that conversation based on the progress a student's making, that goes into the whole conversation at the regular IEP meetings. Let me answer one other part of your question. Then I'm going to ask Diane to fill in, either correct me or add. The other work we do in public schools is not with kids with IEPs, or I should say, we don't know whether they have IEPs. So if you think about our catapult unit that's providing supplemental instruction, intervention programs for reading and math, those are Title I programs where kids are being sent, to the Title I or supplemental instruction room, and our teachers are there and going through an academic program. Some of those kids have IEPs. We're not privy. In that instance, we're not privy to the IEP. So hopefully, Diane, I don't know if you want to add.
Sure. I mean, I have nothing to correct. All of that is accurate. And I would just say we provide services in accordance with the IEP, right? So students are receiving their related services as indicated by their IEP. So if a student is referred to us by a district, the student comes with their IEP. So we implement the services. And then, like Jeff said, once a student has been with us, or if we need to do it sooner, we will hold another IEP meeting and then adjust as needed. And then, on an annual schedule thereafter. So does that answer your question, Julia? Or Is there more specifics?
Well, you mentioned related services.
Yep.
So in special education, when we talk about related services, we talk very specifically about things like speech therapy, therapy, physical therapy, counseling by credentialed folks. Now, my understanding is, are you all also providing related services? When you say related services, so do you you contract with those?
If we don't have the services in-house, go ahead, Jeff. I'm sorry.
No, you were going to say it. I mean, it all depends. It's situated. So the answer to your first question is yes, we provide all of the services that are called for in the IEP. For related services, often depending on, the population in the school or other schools in the neighborhood that, we might be running multiple schools, we will bring on the providers of related services onto our staff. So across SESI, there are occupational therapists, SLPs, PTs, school counselors, school psychologists. As you might imagine, in different states and different regions, sometimes we might not have enough kids to warrant a full-time SLP. In that instance, we will partner with a local provider. But we are responsible. Not only are we responsible for complying with and fulfilling what's in the IEP, the reason I mentioned modifying or adjusting it is because our teams often find, and I don't think this is going to be a surprise to you, that the IEPs are just not rigorous enough. That in fact, as students, spend time with us and as they make progress, that it's important, right, to go into the IEP and set new goals as opposed to just, the same goals sitting there forever. And, I've been in instances where I've seen IEPs that focus on, writing skills or handwriting. And, years after a student clearly can write perfectly well, that's still sitting on the IEP as opposed to kind of focusing in other areas. So we are, again, partnership is kind of the through line of everything we do. In the IEP instance, we're a partner to that committee and providing our input.
Yeah, the partnership piece is clearly so important, particularly when it comes to families. And, I shared with my colleagues recently an article that shows that the vast majority of families are not really fully informed, when changes are made to their child's programming, particularly in private school settings. But just to kind of put a finer point on it, or a little bit just for my own understanding. So the related services, if the students in the public school settings are receiving related services, you may or may not have your related services then come in and sort of preempt those, because presumably if the child's getting related services on their IEP from a speech language pathologist at their school site, you wouldn't necessarily then bring in your own speech language pathologist. I wouldn't.
No, but it's not likely. So the likelier scenario is when a child is referred to us, remember, they're coming to us. We are the school for them. That's it. They come to us at 8:30 in the morning and they spend all day with us. So if speech is in their IEP, they're going to take it with us in our building.
Got it. Okay. Well, right. If they're in their home school, maybe in a different setting, it sounds like your group comes in and may provide services in an alternate setting in their home school.
Oh, yes. Same idea. Same thing, though. If we go into the school, to your point, maybe this is what you're asking, and I'm sorry. I'm a little slow. I think if we go into a school and the child's already getting related services, we're not preempting those services, right? If that's what you're asking, right?
Yes. So yes, that makes sense. My question is actually capitalizing on this idea of specially designed instruction by highly qualified teachers, because that's what the law says. And so my question is, when you come in and you honor the existing IEP, which requires specially designed instruction by highly qualified certificated teachers.
Yes.
Are your professionals going in there special ed certified teachers with highly qualified credentials? Okay, that's what I was trying to understand, is if the IEP is...
Yes, I'm sorry. Yes, the answer is yes. I mean, that is the full intent. So when we're going into a school, we always we like to say we're agnostic as to whether or not we go into a school or the school sends a student to us. There are all kinds of reasons why one may, take precedent, right? Sometimes it's a transportation issue, who knows? But if you were to visit, in its best case, if you were to visit a classroom that we're managing inside a public school, it should look, feel, run just like visiting one of our standalone Sierra schools. So same personnel, same programming, same professional input, same certification requirements, all of that holds true. It's just in a different setting.
The Sierra school that we visited didn't have any certified teachers in special education. So I guess I'm trying to, I can see the value of partnering with ASU so that more of your professionals who are doing the fabulous job that I observed them doing can become certified. That makes sense. But and again, in the, at least in Arizona, once a parent decides to pull their child from the public school setting, they knowingly or unknowingly relinquish a lot of their child's rights when it comes to IDEA and end up, that's the wrong term, choose an alternate setting. But again, back to students who are in the public schools, who are under IDEA, who have specially designed instruction by highly qualified teachers.
Yes.
My question is, when FullBloom comes in at SESI, it's all one continuum, comes in to provide those services. Are they being provided by special education certified, highly qualified teachers in specially designed instruction?
So they are either being provided by highly qualified certificated teachers, or there are instances where there are teachers that are in an alternative cert situation, or on the path to certification. But so I think the way we would say it, let me start by saying our goal is to just say yes to your question, period, and not have to qualify it.
Yeah, it would be our goal as ASU too, right? I mean,
I know, but
that's where the partnership could be so beautiful, right? Because
I agree.
We have that ability to do that. Yeah,
I agree. All I'm saying is the qualification that comes in sometimes is if we can't find those certificated teachers, but we can find somebody who is on the path to certification and complies with the state regulation, then there are instances where that's the case. I say it that way because that's not optimal or ideal for us. That's not that's not our intent. Our intent is full stop, as you said, certificated teachers. There are instances where we're engaging with teachers that are on their way to getting certification.
And that's true of the public school setting writ large.
Right.
So it's not intended as a criticism. I think
I get it.
And Juliet, I mean, the other thing here too is that the other part of this, right, is part of it is certification. Part of it is we're also, the FullBloom is also working with Next Education Workforce around strategic staffing, because the organizational structures of schools also have to shift here. We need teams. We need you can't possibly handle the variance that we're asking people to handle in the kinds of classrooms and in the kinds of organizational structures that we've created. So that's the other part of this, is how do you get also to distributed expertise? Because they're not all going to have the same, even if they're certified. Even in a perfect world where they're all certified, they're not all going to have the same expertise and the same experience and all of that too. And that's why that's the other piece of this too, that we've got to. I don't want to lose sight of in this conversation. Sorry to interrupt.
No, I think that's real. So Juliet, I think I would say yes to both, meaning that why we're so interested in being part of the Next Education Workforce initiative is because I believe everything that Carol just said, I believe is true and urgent, and more urgent than I think most people recognize. However, while we're working on that, I think our responsibility, I go back to what you said, is the current situation says that a child with special needs needs to be in front of a teacher who's highly qualified and certificated. And we agree with that. So in other words, we're not trying to make excuses I think again, what we have to find a better way, but on the path to finding a better way, we also are responsible to put the right adults in classrooms with kids. So I take your question as a good one, and it's one of the biggest challenges that we face.
Agree. And as special educators, we, while we see the need for, really new thinking. I like Carol's term, about alternative ways of thinking about how to deliver instruction most profitably to students. The law has not changed. The law still indicates that these are protections for students who have not traditionally had the education delivered in the way that is needed, as variable as that might be, and as idiosyncratic for many of them as that is. The law is still the law. And so my concern would just be, really in advocating for you that, issues around non-compliance with the law is a very serious thing for districts. So as we talk about, parents, ensuring parents have their rights protected, children have their rights protected. I just would encourage us all to keep the spirit and letter of the law in mind. And incidentally, others in ABA, here could also speak to, and that's a whole nother question, which I'll leave for now because I've sort of, monopolized the time here a little bit. But there is also a set of standards that drive behavioral programming that I have all sorts of questions about, but leave that for a subsequent conversation. I appreciate so much your sharing your thoughts. Thank you.
Yeah, no, and I likewise, we appreciate. But by the way, I say this sincerely. This is the benefit we get out of having partnerships with universities. The questions you're asking, the challenge, right? The rigor, the things that you're interested in. So we're not just creating programming in a bubble, right? And going out to the market and saying, we think what we have is best. So I mean, I'd love to follow up with you on the behavioral programming. I would defer to Diane as our expert there, but I would like to participate in that conversation. Are there
Thank you.
other thoughts or questions or challenges, by the way? We like challenges like that. So happy to talk about any of this.
Thank you so much. Does anybody have any quick last minute questions I know are almost out of time. So I
didn't realize that just an hour goes by quickly.
It does. It goes very quickly. And, I will go back and circle back with all of the people who did get to visit the Sierra School again. And I got kind of some initial thoughts, but I'd love to meet with that group too. And anybody else who's interested in this further to think about the ways that we can partner and the ways that we can support, because I think, you guys have such a huge scale and you are in schools, across the country. And I know I have several questions written down too that are just, they're not things we can capture in just that hour, but we really wanted to have this opportunity to share what you do and how you're doing it and where the opportunities to partner might be, in addition to what's already started in the partnership with our programs as well as with the Next Education workforce. So I'm really glad that we got to, at least share all of those things in this initial meeting. And I would love to follow up with everybody who is interested in having further conversations.
Yeah, well, please, we would love to do that. And let me just, say, Aaron, thanks for facilitating this. And everybody, thanks. I mean, I know your time is precious. So the fact that you decided to spend just an hour with us, we really appreciate it and would love to continue the dialogue.
Thank you so much. And thank you to everybody for attending and sharing your thoughts.
Take care. Have a great weekend.